Hello, it's Ryan from 2minutetennis.net, and in this video, I'm going to show you what you can learn from my serve. Yes, my serve to help improve your serve. Now, this first tip you might think is kind of nitpicky, but I'm telling you, it makes a world of difference. I want you to, if we zoom in here, notice the angle of my racket at the beginning. My racket is not straight up and down, so this would be straight up and down. But rather, my racket is slightly open. So my strings are facing slightly up to my left since I'm right-handed. That is an easy way to make sure that you have the continental grip. So a lot of players, they start with their strings down and then they try to work on a grip change getting to continental, but then they try to keep their strings facing down. Start with your strings facing slightly up. And if you're right-handed, that means slightly up to your left. Lefties, the racket's going to face slightly up to your right. This encourages the proper grip. And if you're used to using a forehand grip, this is going to be a great tip to help you use a continental. The second tip is the coil. I want you to watch here that throughout my service motion, here we see my back, and now we see my chest, and now we see my back again, right? So it's back, chest, back. We're looking at my back, we're looking at my chest, we're looking at my back. There should be a coil away from the court and then back toward the court again. Just like a baseball pitcher, just like a football quarterback, American football quarterback, you want to turn away from your target and then uncoil towards your target again. This is a great way not only to just use your legs and use momentum, but also use a coiling and uncoiling in order to transfer energy from your body into the racket and ultimately into the ball. The third tip is use a lower toss than maybe you typically do just to experiment with it, because a lot of times players use a lower toss and all of a sudden they love it because they realize, oh my gosh, I can actually gain racket speed because I'm creating the environment that I need to travel so much faster with my racket because I've got to make sure I hit the ball before it drops. So you don't need to toss the ball up 6 feet in the air. You don't need to do that. Yes, are there pros who have really high tosses? Of course there are. But that doesn't mean that just, that we can just copy that and we're going to hit our best serves. Experiment. Maybe you like a high toss and that's fine, but experiment with a lower toss. You can see my ball toss barely drops by the time I contact. It's just something that I've always done, and it helps me. I'm not saying you have to do it, but experiment with this. Check out what a low toss feels like, and you'll realize, oh my gosh, you don't have all that time in your swing to make mistakes. It actually cleans up a lot of times the technique that you have. So experiment with a lower toss, and you might just hit the best serves you ever had. All right, the fourth thing is that my strings face down as my racket comes in over my head. So notice my strings here are facing down. This is checkpoint 2, actually. This is palm down position on the serve. I want you to watch how my racket passes in over my head. And while the racket passes in over my head, my strings are pointing down the entire time. Now, not every pro does this. I mean, just look at Sampras, look at Shapovalov, look at Federer. They don't keep their strings pointing down. So why am I suggesting that you keep your strings down? Because it'll keep you as far away as possible from the waiter's tray palm up position. Just do this right now. Just grab your racket and follow along with me. Have your strings pointing down, and then like you're saluting with your right hand. See, I'm saluting with my hitting hand. Looks like I'm saluting like I'm in the military right here, right? I'm just bending my right arm, bringing the racket in over my head, but I'm keeping the strings facing down. That is what's going to help you to come around on edge. And this is actually the last tip. You'll notice that my racket prior to contact is facing left, and then I pronate, and now look at my racket. Now my strings are facing off to the right. So there's a 180-degree difference in where my strings are pointing prior to contact and after contact. When you make that move, you really snap the racket over your hand. The amount of speed that you can create from this is really incredible. It's that snap that you see very high players use where the racket is on edge prior to contact, and it's actually on edge after contact, meaning I could balance a coin on the edge of the racket here, and then I could balance a coin on the edge of the racket here. But my strings are facing in completely different directions. This is just the natural move that will occur when you've got the continental grip And when you bring the racket in over your head, strings down, all of a sudden the racket's on edge. Now you got to snap the forearm and boom, you're going to crush your serve like never before. So work on the continental grip. And if you're struggling with the continental grip, start with your strings ever so slightly facing up. That actually encourages the proper grip. Make sure that you're coiling. Turn away from the court and then turn back toward the court again on your serve to engage using the kinetic chain and the body links in order to create racket speed through the body, into the arm, into the racket, and ultimately into the ball. Work on the lower toss. See if you can experiment with tossing lower. What happens when you toss lower is it gives you less time to swing, which is a good thing, because then you have a lot of time to hit the ball because the ball's just sitting there waiting to be hit, and you're hitting a more stationary ball rather than tossing super high and trying to time it as it comes down. It's so much easier to toss lower, swing fast, and actually hit the sweet spot more often. Practice bringing the racket in over your head, strings pointing down. That's what's going to allow you to come around on edge so you can pronate and film yourself. Make sure that prior to contact, it looks like you're going to hit the ball with the edge. And then after contact, that your strings face in the complete opposite direction. If you work on these tips, there is no doubt you're going to gain confidence, win more matches, and play much better tennis. This is Ryan Reedy from 2minutetennis.net. You got this.